Wait. What? Chief, you're not in this video. Go on, get. Hey everyone, it's Foxx from modelmaking.guru here, back with part 9 of our build of the Freedom Gundam Master Grade. Right, where are we up to? Well, when we last met, I was doing something. I can't remember what I was doing. It's been a little while. I've had a very, very busy couple of weeks at work, so I've not had a chance to catch up much. So I've forgotten where we're up to, but basically we've done the gunk wash. The gunk wash been allowed to dry for, well, I kind of did the whole kit in 2 halves, so it's been about 2 weeks. Everything's dried now. It's been given another gloss varnish a couple of days ago. As you can see, it's nice and shiny. Ooh, shiny means expensive, and expensive means I shouldn't destroy anything. That's now dried. We're on to the last few stages of weathering now. What we're going to do in this episode is the dry brushing. We are going to do basically 2 different lots of dry brushing. We're going to do some highlight coats, so dry brushing around the edges to just give a little definition to the edges, and also just to fade some of the colours like the dark greys and reds, just to make them a bit more interesting, so they're not just, I mean, they're obviously varied a bit now with the gunk wash, but we're going to make that even better. So we are going to use a few basic colours, and what we are going to use is, I'll just move this out of the way, I have 2 palettes, zwei Paletten. We have MiG 502 Abteilung German Grey highlight, brilliant colour. Strangely enough, it's a perfect highlight colour for German Grey. Duh. Also works well on any dark colour, really, any dark grey. You can even use it on things like reds and blues and greens. It works as a really good highlight colour, just for that subtle edging. And also, what's this one? Coagulated Blood. Yeah, sounds minging. Coagulated Blood, German Grey highlight. I'm also going to use 2 artist colours. White, which is white. It's actually called Mixing White. It's a Winton oil colour. And I've also got some Dale Rowney Naples Yellow, which is that one. It's a kind of off-white colour. I like this one because it's a faded yellow, and it works perfectly as a highlight colour on the yellow parts of a Gundam. And the white is going to be for the white parts of the armour, and also I'm going to mix a little bit into the red just to make it more of a highlight. So I'll do that first. Now you're probably asking, why have I got 2 different palettes, a plastic one and a card one? Well, as I've explained before, and while I bang the camera and make it wobble, let me just steady the camera for you. MiG 502 oils are super fine, and they're not very oily. They're perfect straight from the tube for model making. Flash, that's really annoying, isn't it, when the light flashes off there? Whoa. Yeah, I'm in a silly mood today. Artist oils, on the other hand, are chock full of mingy, generally linseed oil or other oils, and they're really super. They're not as fine as MiG oils, which is why these are better for model making, but you can use artist oils, not a problem. The only difference is these are really, really oily, and if you put this straight on the model, it won't cause any problems, but it will take longer to dry than the MiG ones because there's more oil to gas off and get out of the system. And if you're, putting things on top of the oil paints like varnishes, you need to make sure everything's fully dry, so it's going to take you forever and you'll be waiting all the time. So what I do is an old Verlinden technique, which is basically put artist oils on a piece of porous card or cartridge paper, whatever you've got to hand. I just had this piece of card. Put it on here, leave it for 5 minutes, and as you can see around the paint, the oils inside the paint have started to leach out. And this is basically drawing all the oils out so that when I do use the paint, it's going to be a bit drier, less gloopy, and it's going to dry a little bit faster. Not much, a little bit faster. So, what we're going to do? Well, we're going to basically do some dry brushing. I'm just going to quickly mix in some of the Weiss with the red. This is, you can see the colour here. I've chosen the blood, coagulated blood, for 2 reasons. One, it's the one I've got, so that's basically the only reason. And also, it's kind of similar in a dark bloody red. When I do the gunk wash, the primary colours stop being primary colours. And because I pre-shaded them and painted them lightly, they're not bright red anyway. I don't believe in the strong, bright primary colours. So they're kind of similar. In fact, they're pretty similar. But I want to make a highlight, so I'm just going to get some white paint and mix that in, schmunge it around. It's not a real word, Fox. Don't use made-up words. Schmunge it around. It's not really light enough. I need to mix a bit more. and this is purely going to be for this. I'm going to mix it in, mixing. And it kind of goes a cherry colour. I hate cherry. Anything cherry flavoured is minging to me. It kind of goes this cherry colour. How's that comparing? A little bit more, maybe a smidge more. There you go, a bit of white paint. You have to do the sound effects. The whole point of modelling is you've got to do all the sound effects, otherwise you're just not doing it right. So whenever you do anything with oil paints or anything to do with the model, always make the sound effects. It's easier than doing it in post-production, trust me. Right, so that's getting to about the colour I want now. It's kind of a cherry puce, if you're being all middle class about it. That'll do fine. Right, so I've got my tissue now. So how do you do dry brushing? I've shown it before, you know what you're doing. You need a selection of flat, soft brushes. Various sizes, whatever you've got basically. Make sure they're flat, not rounded. That one's got a rounded edge, but it's still a flat brush. These are slightly pricey oil paint brushes, but any soft, flat brush will do. These will sable and things. Now what we're going to do is, for the white paint, for things like red, all the red parts are quite small, so I'm going to use a small brush. For the German grey, I think I use a similar small brush. And for the white, I can go a bit more freehand on the white because it's quite big. The parts are all separate. So I'm going to use, shall I use this one? No, I've not used this brush yet. I'll use this one for the white. It's dead easy. I've shown it before. What do? Well, take your brush for the red. Get it in the paint. That brush is really stiff actually. It's probably not good. Just soften it up a little bit. Get it in the red. Get your tissue. Kitchen roll will do. Bog roll maybe not because it's a bit fluffy and you'll get bits coming off. But kitchen roll's fine. This is automotive blue paper I got from Morelli's in Trafford Park. But just get most of it off on the paper. Same old dry brushing technique you've seen me do before. Most of it off. So there's very little left on the brush. There we go. And now all we do is we're going to go over the edges. And I'm not going to go blub, blub, blub with the brush. I'm going to do it at an angle. I'm going to get that bit of paint off because there's big dots of paint on the end. I'm going to get the brush at an angle and I'm just going to do it 45 degrees to the corner and the edge. I hope this is all in focus. And I'm just going to very gently run it over the red. Now none of this might come out on camera at all. I'll tell you what, it's not even coming out in real life. I can hardly see it. It's just going to collect on the edge. I'm just going to give a little bit of definition. I'm going to go ever so slightly over the edge, but because I've got so little paint on the brush, I can afford just to feather it a little bit. Now I think everything's gone green. I'm not quite sure why. Why is everything gone green? Ah, it's that blue paper. My apologies. This iPhone, using an iPhone for camera, the white balance is terrible. The wrong coloured thing can make everything go horrible. So just brushing it on the edge there. Now if you can see the brush strokes and it's a bit obvious, you can just rub it with your finger. Make sure you wear gloves because you have stuff all over your hand like I have. Let me just wipe my glove off. Do you know, the one downside of oil paints is very messy. So where were we? So I'm just going to go on the edge here and just ever so slightly tease it on the edge. It probably won't even come out on camera, this. And if you build it up slowly, it will give you a highlighted edge and a faded patch. Let's do a bit on here. And do it on the edge here. On the edges. And then I'm going to do some on the main part of it. Just on the edge again, but I'm just going to make that edge look a little faded. So basically what I'm getting is the bit inside here is darker and the bit on the outside is lighter, and it just adds another layer of shading. It kind of enhances your pre-shading, looks everything look a bit more worn and weathered. So that's that one. You probably can't see any of that. What I might do is just do some from the bottom here. Hope this is all in focus. Do some down here, so I'm going to really fade this bit at the end. And just gently work. Then if you get anything on the other, on say the grey areas, don't worry, you can get a cotton bud and just rub it off. It's oil paint, it'll stay wet and gloopy for days. I'm going to get myself my German grey highlight brush. Do exactly the same. Bit of German grey highlight. Turn my tissue paper over. Be wary when you're turning your paper over. I know you can't see it on camera, I'm turning it over. That you don't use the side, they don't put the side with all the paint on it from the last go on the desk, because I've had to clean paint off my desk so many times doing that. Because I am special. Well special I am. Now you might see this better on the German grey. So again, we're going to use the same principle. Let's get the paper out of the way so everything's not green. Sorry about that. Do you know, things I have to put up with. Get our shield, and we're going to go over these edges. The good thing with these chisely brushes, you can do it both ways. You can do it angle on or end on. And I'm just going to get a bit more paint off. Just going to do it on the edges. You probably see it better on this because it's a dark colour. Now the thing with this kind of edging and like highlight dry brushing is it's all about being as subtle as you can. It's not about slapping it all on. It's not about making anything obvious. I'm just going to get some more paint off. There's not enough paint off. I want it really subtle for this. I'm going to see if I can get around these edges on this little part of the shield. See, I've got paint around this little dimple now. If I rub that off with my thumb, it should stay on the edges. And I can just lightly do it to fade that part. Same here, I can lightly, where the paint's chipped here, and I've already done paint chipping, I can add some fading, very gently. And that just gives that faded look. If you go and look at an old rusty car, or an old rusty truck, or something, look at where paint is chipped off and where rust spots are. Paint isn't all one colour. Go and look at an old yellow, digger truck, and look where the rust spots and things are. Where there's a rust spot, you'll see the brown patch of rust or exposed metal if it's not rusted yet. And what you might see is the paint around that is faded slightly. Where if it's the case of rust, it's corroded, it's leaching into the paint, and that rust spot will grow to fill that spot. But where you just have paint chips, what you'll often see is the paint around it will be faded just because it's exposed to the air and it's reacting with the metal underneath, it's reacting with the water and the oxygen in the air, and you get that fading effect. So it's not just a chip of, you don't have a flat colour and then a paint chip below. You want to just sort of focus on your paint chips and ever so slightly fade the paint. Now I've got so little paint on this that I'm not getting brush marks, and you probably can't even see it on camera, but it's there. It's fading the edges, and what it's also doing is making the pre-shaded shadows a bit more obvious. It's bringing those out nicely. So you probably can't see any of this on camera. But that's that bit done. And then last of all, I'll do some on this bit because you'll see it more on here on this grey piece, because I can go quite obvious on that. It just works on the highlighted edges. And then for the last bit, I'm going to use white. Do I want a big brush or a small brush, actually? Thinking about it. So I'm just going to get some white on the brush. I'm going to put my finger in the yellow paint. Brilliant. Get some white on the brush. This is an artist sauce. It's a bit more oily. Might take a bit more work to get it off of the brush. I'm just going to off camera because I'm going to kill the white. I was about to say kill the white balance, but then I just smacked the camera anyway. Do you know, it's not easy filming these things, Sometimes I just want to get on and build these things, and I've got all this filming to do, and it's really quite complicated. All the things to remember and what's on camera. Oh, do you know, it's a big long brush. I can't help hitting the camera. Remember what's in shot, what's not, what's in focus. Right, so we've got most of the paint off. Now the white paint is where you'll get the least bang for your buck. Obviously this is white, but it's off-white now because it's been gunk washed and everything else. This is where you're going to get the least effect, and sometimes you can do a bit and think there's no point. But what I'm going to do, I don't know if you'll see any of this, is same again, try and stay at about 45 degrees to the actual edge, and just run it over the edge like that. And what it should do, probably not actually on camera very well, it will just pick out, if I can get my brush around with the camera, pick out the edges. Now what it will also do is add some slight brush stripes and stuff to the white area, so it'll just make that paint look a bit more battered and worn and less like a solid colour. And it doesn't matter if it goes on other parts of your kit, if it's the white colour, because it'll actually highlight any colour you want. I could do it on the red and it'd just do a nice, in fact let's do it. Do it a bit on the red, it just fades the edge even more. And there's nothing wrong at all with doing all your dry brushing like this with white. White is a great highlight colour for any colour. Works especially well on your primary colours, yellows and reds, and not so much blues maybe, but it still works. And I'm just going to build this up slowly. Again, make sure to wear gloves because this stuff gets everywhere. Now, as I said, the white effect, you'll probably see more on the end there, where it's a bit more obvious on these dark parts. But it is going to be super subtle with the white, and it's almost the point of why you're bothering to do it, because nobody's ever going to see it. And that's a lot of model making, is why you're bothering to do it, because nobody's ever going to see it. But you know it's there, and it's your own pride in your model. So you know it's there, and you know what you want to achieve. And it's not even coming out on camera. I mean, I can hardly see it, and I'm sat right here doing it, so yeah, you guys have got no chance. But I know it's there. Go over this raised bit here. And you can basically be as subtle or unsubtle as you want. It's also fading nicely on the grey bit in there. You can be as subtle or unsubtle as you want. You can go the whole hog on it and go really to town on it. You see there, it's fading out these little grill parts and making the lines more obvious, but covering up the flat parts. Also pulls back your gunk washing a little bit. Do a bit on there. And that is all I'm going to do. I've got to do that on the rest of the kit now. Bit of white on there. Don't know if I've got any left on the brush actually. This is a super subtle stage, and there's nothing wrong at all with missing this stage out completely if you want to. I have got a bit of excess of white paint on there, so I'm going to get my cotton bud. I'm just going to try and pull it back a bit off the grey, because it's oil paint. You can do that. Just use your finger if you want. Just where I've gone over the grey a little bit too much with the white, I'll just pull it back, and that's the beauty of it. If it's not quite what you want, rub it off, start again. And that is now dry brushed. That is all I'm going to do. I've got to do that to the rest of the kit, to all the other parts. So white on the white parts. I've got, you know, that yellow colour is for things like the V-fin, red for the red, and German grey highlight for the dark grey parts, and the blue parts, which I don't think I've got any left. It's all red. So this will be going on all the red wing parts. And then once that is done, we'll have some dry brushing to do with chrome silver. Okay, the general highlighting coat has been done. Oil paint's dry brushed onto everything, except the metallics. Let's move that out of the way. As you can see, here's just an example piece. We've now got some nice edge definition. It's still shiny because I've not matte varnished it yet. Got some nice edge definition there. Edge. Used a mixture of the light red and some white on this just to get some real crispness on those edges and some fading. So I'm quite pleased with that, especially around this panel line here, giant finger. Come out quite nice the way it kind of fades down and fades up. You've got little streaks and stripes. That's the idea you're looking for. You want some slight brush marks just to suggest, you know, scratches and scrapes. But that's what you're looking for basically. So that's been done. Let me just put that away. So what is the next step? Well, first of all is zooming out. The next wonderful step. I'm zoom in again for you. Going to make you dizzy by the end of the day. The next step is the metallics. Again, back to these. Now we've seen all the process we've been through on these. Painting them, dry brushing them with chrome silver, gloss varnishing, gunk wash, more gloss varnish. It's actually 2 coats of gloss varnish I put on this after I'd done the gunk wash over the whole kit. And as you can see, contrary to popular belief, everything is still posable, thankfully, even though there's all the paint on there. and that's because I gently filed out all the little edges and so on when I was doing the painting, when I was doing putting the leg together. So what's next for this bit? Well, there's only really one more thing to do on this. I was originally going to paint some different colours on here, but I decided just to keep it with the gunmetal colour. I quite like that, so I just decided to leave it that shiny metal. So I'm not going to be doing any more varnishing on this now. It's had 2 coats of varnish over the gunk wash, and it's going to be shiny when I finish. This is why I've done these parts separately. So that's going to be the last of it to go on there, apart from a quick dry brush of Tamiya X11 Chrome Silver. And it's going to be a very subtle dry brush just to pick up the edges, get some shine back. It'll be a bit brighter because this has had a gunk wash and it's had a quick blast of smoke. This is just gunmetal sprayed on because it's had a quick spray of smoke when it was being painted, Tamiya smoke thinned down, and it's had the gunk wash. It's looking a bit dull now. I'm still a little bit shiny. So it looks like used metal. So what I'm going to do now is just bring some of the life back to the edges. I'm just going to be using the chrome silver. I'm going to use the same method as before, dry brushing. So I'm going to get a little tiny brush. As you can see, the blue paper's come in. Everything goes green. Not green. Green. Not green. Green. I'll stop now. I have to amuse myself somehow when I'm doing these. So what you can't see is me just quickly getting the paint off. Well, you can see it now because I'm showing it. Duh. Real special mood today. Just getting most of the paint off on the tissue as before, and as I said before, chrome silver dries really quick, so you have to do this quickly. And all we're going to do is, again, about 45 degrees to the angle I want. I'm just going to go over this edge very lightly, and I'm not really going to colour anything here because there's no real colouring to do. All I'm doing is putting a little bit of paint on the edges and on some of the flat surfaces a little bit, just to give some sparkle back. Don't know if it'll come out on camera. And what you'll find is, like when you did the first time, you will get some streaks on the flat surfaces from the brush, and you want those because that just looks like tarnishing. You'll see a little shiny streak of the chrome silver, and then you'll have the original gunmetal smoke and gunk underneath. And this is the idea. Go and look at any shiny piece of metal that's been dirtied and gunked up and used on a piece of industrial equipment, and you will see kind of streaks in there. You'll see little marks and lines. And you see it's dried out on the brush already. You do have to work fast with this stuff and load your brush often because it does dry out super fast. I'm just getting some more paint. And you really want almost nothing on the brush whatsoever. If you do it too much, you're just painting it chrome silver, which is not what you want. You want to just pick the edges. And I'm going along like this because I want some little brush marks, but not too many. I don't want to paint it. I just want to... It's almost the reverse of tarnishing. But what I'm doing, instead of tarnishing the metal, I'm actually brushing on the untarnished bits. It's kind of the reverse process of real life. Dragging it about this angle means that I get this little edge here. If I flatten the brush a little bit, this part stays dark, this edge and this edge go bright. That's how it works. That's what I'm looking for. We have now dry brushed this leg, and hopefully you can see it looks a lot more metallic and shiny now. Now when I see it in real life, when I see it on camera, it's really overexposed because it's shiny. Everything's going black and white, it's going light and dark, so it can't really see. But what you might be able to see, I hope you can, and I can see in real life, is that I've not just painted it chrome silver. It's kind of stripy and streaky and patchy. Like there's a little patch here of chrome silver, and then there's a dark patch around it, and it's not obvious, it's really random because it's a really light dry brush coat. You get that kind of scraped metal, where you get some scrapes and scratches. The scrapes and scratches are the darker, previously treated chrome silver, all the stuff on it, and the shiny bits are the chrome silver. But that is now effectively done. I'm not going to do anything else to that leg now. That leg is ready to be going to the model when it's finished. So I just need to go off and do the other leg, the torso and the bits for the feet, but that's the next step. So I shall go off and do that. Before I do that, some other points I forgot to mention when I was doing the oil painting dry brush. I'm just going to clean my brush while I do this because I'm going to wait for a bit. when you're doing the dry brushing with oil paints, it's not just to highlight the edges. There are other things, beneficial things that happen. And there are other reasons to do that kind of oil paint dry brushing. What it will also do, especially if you're using white or a light, say German grey highlight, what it will do is it will also slightly fade, as well as the paints, it will slightly fade your decals. So for example, if you have a white, sorry, you can hear my brush in my brush cleaning pot. It's probably really annoying. How annoying is that? I'm going to keep doing it. You're annoyed now. I better stop. You stop watching. Sorry. Told you I was in a silly mood. Yeah, when you say you dry brush, say you've got a white part and it's got a bright red decal on it. When you dry brush your white over the edges, it gives you some nice highlights. You know, you've got other things on there like gunk wash and stuff, so it gives you a nice edge highlight. But if you dry brush a little bit of the white over the part, it won't recolour it because it's a really translucent colour, white oil paint. But what it will do is it will fade that bright red decal, for example, just to make it blend in a bit more. So it's a good way, if you've got your model all painted and your parts, I'll see if we can find a part, your parts are all bright. Let me see if I can find a part while we're talking. If your parts are all bright, your decals are all bright and sticky out, then it will help blend them in a little bit. Let's move that out of the way. So you can see on this piece here, wobble wobble, I know it's still shiny so you can see the decal film, but the red decal, I didn't show it you before, but it now looks just a bit more subtle. It looks a bit more blended into the white, it looks a bit more painted on. So that's another benefit of doing the oil paint dry brushing. It just helps blend some of those decals in, and it also blends your gunk wash. It fades that a bit, so it brings back some very subtle highlight areas to your gunk wash. So everything, if it looks a bit dark, go over it with the lighter colour, in this case white, and it will just pull that gunk wash back a little bit and give a bit more life to your part, and just make it look even more kind of, not really going for realistic, but just something that's not a flat colour and simple. It will always look more interesting and natural than something that's just flat colours. So there you go. So that leg's done. I'll go off and do the rest of the legs, and I'll shut up now and stop waffling. Go off and do the rest of the legs and the other metallic bits. And when we come back, we will do, I think we will do a little tiny bit of streaking, but not streaking using oil paints and thinners, but just maybe some dry brush streaking, maybe for like the engine outlets, the thruster outlets and things like that, and the things on the shield. I think, this is my plan, by the time it gets to it, because all those oil paints have to dry for 24 hours now that I've dry brushed, so by the time it gets to that, I'll probably just remind completely. So anyway, let's go and do the rest of these, and I'll be back in a moment. Alrighty, okay, next part. I'm going to whiz through this a little bit because I'm aware this video's gone on, or the last two bits went on a bit longer than I planned for. Next bit is going to be some streaking. Now, it's not the traditional way I've shown in other videos of using thinners and oils. This is some dry brush streaking, and what we're going to effectively do is create this effect. If you can see on camera there, it probably looks a bit more harsh on camera than it is in reality, but basically what we're going to do is create some streaking from verniers and exhausts, just because these things are like, you know, jet engines, rocket engines, whatever you want to call them, however they're powered. They're putting out something and heat, so the paintwork is going to get stained and discoloured. Think of it a bit like your engines on the back of the Millennium Falcon. So I'm going to show you how to do this. I've got to do these on the back of the legs. This is why I've temporarily put this panel on the back of the leg, because there's a big vernier there. Back of the legs, we've got to do some on the feet directly in front of this part, so the red part of the foot. I'm not sure if anything is going to have to be done on the arm, on the shoulder verniers, because I don't think they point to anything. I don't think they point directly over the arm. And we're going to do a little bit around the exhaust slots for the cannons, the guns. I'm not going to do any on the engines on the wings, the bits that look like exhaust, because they've already got a gunk wash on them anyway. So this is really just little touches to suggest, you know, tarnishing from heat from an exhaust of some sort. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Again, it's oil paint, so if you mess it up, don't worry, you can go back and fix it post-production, as it were, because it takes forever to dry. So I'll show you what I did. It's dead simple. You've got your piece here. I have on this piece of plastic some MiG 502 Abteilung Starship filth. You know it very well. You know it very well. And also some MiG 502 Abteilung engine oil. I'll say that again in English or German. Abteilung engine grease. Engine grease, You can't see it here, but engine grease is an oily, greasy colour, and Starship Filth, as you know, is a dark bluey brown colour. I've got 2 brushes, one for the engine grease and one for the Starship Filth. And what we're trying to suggest is heat. So, instead of just getting some Starship Filth and slapping it on, which makes it look like dirt and dust and grime, we're going to do some heat staining first. So I'm going to get some paint on the brush. Again, apologies if the camera goes wobbly by. I'm not zoomed in this time, but when I do my brushing, the camera wobbles. I'm going to bring in the green screening towel of dry brushing. This is when the camera goes wobbly. Get most of the paint off. There we go. Get that out of the way so you can go back to normal colour. And then take your piece, and what I'm going to do, I'm using this chisel edge brush, this wedge shaped, because I want to get in this corner here and flick it out like that. The heat is, these engines move downwards, so it's possible it may point down on this white panel, which is why I'm doing this. If it just pointed outwards that way, there'd be nothing to do because it wouldn't have any exhaust or temperature on there. So I'm going to get the brush in, and very, very gently, if you can see this, I'm going to just flick it downwards. Hope you can see this. Flick it down, and it'll very slowly start to add some staining. Now this is the engine grease. I'll do it that way so you can see it better. You can go as heavy or as light as you want. There's a bit more in there. Just dot some in, and then I'm just teasing. I'm kind of doing it like that. So it's not. I'm not drawing a line. I'm just flicking it, and there's almost no paint on the brush, so you can just make a streak there. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can make it thicker on one side than the other. So now we've got, I don't know if it'll come out with the white balance on this, but you've got a sort of oily streak there, hence the name engine grease. Right, now what we shall do next is get ourselves some Starship and Filth and Gefahrten. So Starship Filth, a different brush because I don't want to mix the paints. This has had 24 hours to dry since the last dry brushing section, by the way. Dry brushing you don't need to leave for 5 days, 24 hours is usually fine. If you're going to be matte varnishing your model or gloss varnishing it, maybe 48 hours. But if you're doing another dry brush of oil over on top of other oils, 24 hours is about right. You should be fine, you won't get too much paint mixing. But if you're not sure, leave it for 48, it doesn't do any harm. Take the paint off the brush. And then go back to our piece. And exactly the same procedure. Just flick it like that, almost flicking the wrist. So just flick the. Now I'm actually not flicking all the way, I'm just flicking at the top, so I get a lot of the Starship Filth in that little recess here, and maybe a tease of it at the top. Because I'm not trying to basically overpaint what I've just painted. I'm trying to just get a streak in the middle. Just build it up so it's darker in the middle, ideally, or to one side, than it is around the rest. And that is that. The idea is not to make both sides identical. If you wanted to, you could do a little line of you could do a tiny blob of Starship Filth here and just dry brush and tease it so it becomes a streak. You could do that, it's absolutely fine. Oh, I needed the foot piece, don't I? Oh, the foot piece is exactly the same. It lines up with the middle, so we'll just go ahead and put some engine grease on there. Mostly on the top, because underneath isn't going to get as much crud falling onto it from above. And then a little bit of the Starship Filths. Sorry about that, my works mobile was ringing and somebody outside was basically cutting trees down, so I had to pause. I've actually forgotten where I was up to, but I think I've just done the engine grease on here. So I'm just going to do some Starship Filth now, just to get the black bit in the middle, as before. If this is like not continuity and I've just broken in the middle of whatever I was doing, I do apologise. So again, you see you've got that on the foot underneath, it will carry on below. And that's all we're aiming for, is really just to suggest those kind of streaks. Now if I wanted to break this up into individual streaks, like one at each side perhaps, I could get a cotton bud and just gently rub it to break the middle part up, or I could use a cotton bud very lightly dipped in some oil thinners And again, just straighten. If your line goes a bit wonky, if you do it and it's gone a bit wonky, don't worry, just get a cotton bud and just clean that off. This will just rub off. Just get your cotton bud. Have I got one here? If that, say that was going off to one side, you just get your cotton bud straight and that will just give you some nice crisp edges. But you're not really looking for crisp edges because it's crap coming out of an engine exhaust effectively. So that's what you're looking for, just a bit messy. Now I'll go off and do the rest of these bits. What's all I've got to do? I've got to do various bits and bobs on the bodywork. I don't think there's anything else I need to add. I'm going to do some little bit of Starship Filth dry brushing for the little vents on the shoulder guns. So I'm going to do a little bit. In fact, I'll do that now. I'll do it now. Tell you what, let's just do it now, shall we? I'll do it now. This is just, my imagination tells me this is where some like exhaust gases come out. So I'm just going to very quickly, same as before, just dot it on. Just to darken that. Starship Filth is a very versatile colour. I love it. I'm just going to darken it ever so slightly. There you go. It's only a really subtle hint. You don't need to go overboard. I mean, you can do as much as you want, but you don't need to go overboard. Put a bit around the edge there, that exhaust. And again, here is an exhaust. The stuff's going to come out. It's not going to come back on itself, but I'll go a bit around the edge. Here, the exhaust will come out that way. So it's not really going to touch anything on the wing. I'll have to put the wing together and see. The beauty of this is if I build it all, matte varnish it, build it and get everything right, and I still find, oh, I missed a bit out, you can always dry brush Starship Filth on top of a matte varnish. If you're dry brushing stuff, on top of a matte varnish is fine. If you finish your kit and build it and suddenly realise you forgot to put some exhaust staining somewhere, just go and quickly add it. Don't worry about varnishing over it again if you just done a little bit. If it's a display model, you're not going to be handling it. You'll be fine. So I shall go around and just check anywhere else that I need to add these little bits of staining. And then I think when that's done, I'll leave it for 24 hours to dry. We have the matte varnishings. And then I think it's basically assembly. So I shall leave it there for this time. So, thank you very much for watching as always. Follow this channel, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Check me out on Facebook, facebook.com/modelmaking.guru, and Twitter is @modelmaking.guru. The addresses are at the end if you stick after the titles. But this will do it for today. Thanks always for watching, and we shall see you on the other side. So from me, and from the Master Chief, with his funky arm, adios amoebas. Yeah, I'm not doing that again, never mind. Adios amoebas.